Hi, I'm Michelle Bastian, and I am honored today to introduce the father of the raw food movement, Mr. Viktoras Kulvinskas.
Well, it's a pleasure being with you.
Oh, actually, no, let's start
Okay.
because I wanted to say all this, okay?
Okay.
All right.
It's okay.
Start from the beginning.
Hi, I'm Michelle Bastian, and I am honored today to introduce the father of the raw food movement, Mr. Viktoras Kulvinskas, otherwise known as Reverend Essene Bishop Viktoras Kulvinskas. And he is joining us today auspiciously on his way to Lithuania to be honoring Ann Wigmore, his partner in creating the Hippocrates Health Institute. So I'd like to welcome you today, Viktoras.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to say that my deeply held intention with this interview is that we will embrace discussing many topics in ways that are not typically addressed in our normal media avenues, including thoughts on the evolution of our species with regards to nutrition and our spirituality or divine energy system called the chakras. I myself am a certified energy therapist and interested in relating chakras, nutrition, and raising consciousness. So with my first question, Reverend Viktoras, I'd like to start our conversation by having you elaborate on just a few of the many predictions that you made in your groundbreaking work here of yours from over 35 years ago, Survival into the 21st Century. I'd love to have you share how you've seen many of your predictions unfold up to today in the most talked about year in the end of the Mayan calendar, 2012.
You're asking for a major scope to explore, but hey, anything is possible at barcode mode. Dr. Max Planck stated that for a paradigm shift to occur, it takes approximately one generation, and it's not one in academia. Instead, the old generation dies off and the new generation is completely familiar and immersed in it. And I witnessed two such paradigm shifts occurring. When I came into the scene with Reverend Ann Wigmore, the nuts among the berries was the reference that you might have toward anybody that was a vegetarian. Matter of fact, it was a title of Fred Steer, the head of nutrition department at Harvard, who I wrestled with on Channel 7 and ended up winning in the bout because of my own academic preparedness at Harvard Medical Library, several years of it, through the bio-abstracts and the clear thinking that is found within the academic community. So the first shift that occurred was the appearance of vegetarianism as a solid movement, actually more than vegetarianism, veganism, completely a plant-based diet. At the culmination of it, we saw the formation of www.pcrm.org, Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. They have presently over 5,000 medical doctors and other professional health caregivers who have taken a posture based on research that a vegan diet properly chosen is not only adequate nutritionally, but anything contrary to a vegan diet is contrary to good health. That was the first major paradigm shift, and the next thing you know, people started giving some degree of respect to veganism. Then you had the next drift, which I was very much involved, both in the first stages and the second stages, through endless dedication and traveling all over the country and the world, lecturing. I reveal in my most prestigious work, Survival in the 21st Century, and based on both the holism that is represented in the book. By holism means integration of physical, mental, emotional, spiritual domains as being all of key importance, not only to quality of life, but longevity, freedom from degenerative diseases, and also sustainable lifestyles. So the book was classic from documentation point of view, and it continued to evolve. Every decade I upgraded it, making it very current so that it was not left behind some of the key important issues that were evolving. The next stage came about is raw foodism. And this was actually pioneered of all places, but in terms of academia, once again, by the Harvard Medical School. I was fortunate enough to be on flight that particular day of Tuesday. I grabbed a hold of New York Times, which I like it for the science section. And sure enough, the leading presentation there was by Harvard on the subject of degenerative diseases. And it was May 23rd, 2002. And in this extensive, elaborate article, it showed that, first of all, everybody who is on an enzyme-less standard American diet, the SAD diet, has their bloodstream flooded with incompletely metabolized, in other words, undigested protein complexes, which is keeping the inflammatory condition in an ongoing, non-stop inflammatory state, and thus in a hyperactive immune system function. And the immune is the key driving force in terms of regeneration and maintenance of body ecology. Most physicians are in agreement that if we could only jumpstart and hyperactivate the immune functions, we could overcome, not only prevent all the simple disorders such as colds, flus, headaches, but acute conditions, but even the chronic ones would be prevented. And what they stated further, without making a full 100% commitment, as any good scientist would do, they used the word probably, but probably all degenerative conditions, and they listed about 30 of them, such as cancer, cardiovascular diseases, asthma, emphysema, are caused by this inflammatory condition. They didn't identify what was causing it. In my book Survival already, 30 years prior to that, I showed how this inflammatory condition develops by subjecting protein to heat instead of the low temperature predigestive action of either the usage of soaking of nut seeds and also germination and also fermentation. These are the two most powerful ways of transforming seeds, grains, nuts into edible predigested amino acids, which your body can successfully utilize without having a backup of incompletely metabolized proteins flooding your blood profile, which is creating havoc from the point of view that John Gaynor in Science News in 1972 showed that under the duress of standard American diet, what we have is creating difficulty in absorption of oxygen. They showed that heat-treated protein, when consumed, create a reduction of oxygen transport by as much as 60%. Body creates two adaptive mechanisms of removing this circulatory protein through the both immune system intervention as well as also cardiovascular, which is over 60,000 miles internally, storage space capacity within the bloodstream walls. So it ends up being stored in bloodstream walls, causing cardiovascular disorders, or it being created, according to the work of Dr. Otto Warburger, a Nobel Prize recipient. His major thesis, where he won the Nobel Prize, was the ultimate cause of cancer. He showed that if there's only a 30% drop in oxygen transport, it will cause, within a 24 to 48 hour time, normal cells to mutate into cancer cells. And University of Wisconsin showed that these cancer cells suck up circulatory protein 20 times faster than normal cells. In other words, it's a way of vacuum cleaning the blood profile with these cancer cells and getting into sacs of cancer cells, these circulatory proteins, which is interfering with oxygen. Why is oxygen so central in importance is the fact that under the metabolic activities in our bodies, you think multitasking, you can do 3 events at the same time, maybe driving a car, being on a cell phone and doing makeup and taking notes. You think that's pretty profound. The human body does not 10 events at the same time, not 10 followed by 2 zeros, or which would be 100, or by 3 zeros, which would be 1,000. No, it would be 10 followed by 27 zeros. That's how many events are occurring, chemical reactions in your body every second. And every one of them are oxygen dependent and enzyme dependent. These are 2 key driving forces. If you don't have oxygen, you see that if you zip up your mouth, close off your nose, within a matter of a minute you're gasping, or you could even die if someone didn't allow you to have a breath of oxygen. Well, so we need high oxygen requirements. So this situation shows why the Harvard Medical School study showed the flood of circulatory and completely metabolized protein is such a radical alteration of blood conditions, and the only way you're going to have maximum oxygenation, maximum metabolism, is by consuming your food in a raw state. So more and more individuals are moving toward raw frontiers.
That being said, Reverend Viktoras, would you say in a soaked nutshell, pun intended, based on all your years of work and research and observation and participation in clinical studies, what is your prescription in 2012 to prevent and reverse aging and disease?
Undereating is right at the start. We're eating too much calories, too much protein, and too much fat. And we're seeing morbid obesity and degenerative diseases are rampant. Practically 80% of our population, that includes the children, about 40% of children. Overall average is about 80%, according to World Health Organization, are sick with incurable diseases. Matter of fact, we're living at a time when we anticipate that the parents will outlive their own children. That's how crisis conditions are. The whole idea is to return to more natural, first of all, whole foods, not referring to the whole food industry that we see, though it's a good resource for nutrition and quality nutrition, but what you find directly from the farmers. So if you think in terms of whole foods, white flour is not a whole food, even when all the skin and shell is there. Now, you would like to be consuming the whole grain, the whole wheat, the whole rice, if you're going to be cooking it. Better yet, to get maximum nutrition, you'll germinate it, and you can prepare many different alternative foods. Whether you wanna basically nut milks you can create, which is going to have a high protein resources, or you want to create veggie burgers, or you want to create manna bread or Essene bread, or through low temperature ovens that do not destroy the enzymes. So that the whole idea is to do the following: increase hydration, consume less and chew more, eat whole natural foods, with an emphasis on green things. Green is so important. In Ezekiel, it talks about greens are for healing. And we see now, even in the current World Olympics, what were the superstars talking about in terms of nutrition? They were having green smoothies for breakfast, green protein smoothies for breakfast, like with spirulina, chlorella, blue-green algae, wheatgrass powders. They were having for lunch and supper. Majority of the meal, they said, was made up of green, high, roughage foods, and then a little bit of protein, a little bit of starch. That is the new direction, the new trend. It's not only among athletes, but also among beauty queens in fashion world. On the June-July issue of Vogue, the French version, we had on the cover Gisele Bündchen. She is one of the star models, the top model in the world, earning somewhere in the 70 million a year. Also a fantastic athlete, gymnast, not only volleyball, but also karate, as well as yoga, as well as swimming and all the other athletic. Very tuned, trained athlete. Well, she was on the cover of Vogue, and 3 pages were devoted to her nutritional orientation, namely raw foodism in Costa Rica. She's my neighbor, so that's how I know about it. Basically, so she's setting the trend in fashion. The Hollywood is, half of the Hollywood actors are on the youthing foods instead of the aging foods. The youthing foods are reminiscent of the statement of Jesus in the Essene Gospel of Peace. He says, from life comes life, from death comes death. If you want to accelerate your aging process, you keep eating food that has no life in it, no enzymes. Everything is impossible to digest and very hard to digest. Have you noticed after eating a big old meal that you normally consume, you feel quite sleepy unless you have some alkaloids like coffee, Coca-Cola, all loaded with stimulants, or you might even go for cocaine, that God forbid, or you'll be basically lighting up a cigarette. Nicotine, again, a major stimulant, lasts for a short time and then you're crashing again. Whereas on a live food program, you need, first of all, because of maximum nutrition, you need less. Secondly, you have it in pre-digested form predominantly, so it's easy on your digestion, minimal stress, and maximum nutrition. So try to emphasize those kind of foods, non-processed. So if you're going to eat, instead of pasta, spaghetti, even though it's made of whole grains, no, instead have legumes, have grains. That is preferred choice. So then adequate hydration. Most people are severely dehydrated. Also, probiotics. We're seeing it even, One A Day Vitamin is advocating probiotics. They got their little pill. Instead, grow your own. Sauerkraut is so cheap and easy to make within a period of 12 hours. With proper guidance, you'll have it. You can see me on YouTube showing you exactly how to make it. It's free. So those, hydration, exercise, as well as your attitude. If you want to live long and healthy and be from degenerative diseases, Dr. Chopra, one of the leading physicians, stated that if you want to know your likelihood of health as far as longevity and freedom from degenerative diseases, ask 3 questions. Are you happy with your spouse, happy with your job, happy with your life? If any one of them are no's, you are in trouble, because more likely than not, if any one of those 3 are no's, you know what you're going to do? Is you're going to look for an addictive escape. It might be your addiction to comfort foods, or you might be drinking, or you might be a workaholic, or couch potato, etc., etc. So basically it's a holistic approach that I emphasize, as well as you are going to be not a happy camper on this planet Earth as long as you are not yourself. Most people have not the faintest idea who they are, what their life is all about. Your life is sacred. You came here with a special mission. And if you don't do your mission as just another incarnation, that does not count. You either evolve, it's like going through grammar school and sleeping, and then grade school, and then high school, and you either sleep through it and are not graduated, or you might be graduated without proper preparedness for the next level. In the cosmos, there is no graduation unless you've done your work, and that means self-realization. Astrology, numerology, palmistry all help, but the biggest helper is meditation and prayers. You work with them, silent, still, and your true self appears within you, and it takes over, and it makes you who you are. A happy, healthy, holy individual. It's our natural state.
Beautiful. Reverend Viktoras, now I'd like to get a little provocative for a moment and actually present another, well, of course, yes, you laid it all out for everyone, but in the course of, again, back to my intention of speaking with regards to evolution, I'd like to read a little bit from this excerpt from the China study, which I know you know very well. I think the book came out back in 2005 by T. Colin Campbell. And in a written debate with Campbell in 2008, Dr. Loren Cordain, a professor in the Department of Health and Exercise Science at Colorado State University, argued that the fundamental logic underlying Colin's hypothesis that low-protein diets improve human health is untenable and inconsistent with the evolution of our own species. Now he goes on to say that there is no credible fossil, archaeological, anthropological, anatomical, ethnographic, or biochemical evidence to show that members of our Homo sapiens species routinely consumed low-protein diets. In fact, without the inclusion of energetically dense animal food into the Homo sapien diet, starting at least 2.5 million years ago, our large energetically active brains would not have evolved. So do you perhaps feel, Reverend Viktoras, that we are being called at this point in time in 2012 to a more plant-based diet as a course of evolution because of needing to combat modern diseases?
Well, it's more than combat modern diseases. It's also becoming a star athlete. And if you are interested in overall athletics, the whole athletics, first of all, I'll work on two things, which seems to be overly emphasized: athletics and also academic or intellectual development, brain power, okay? Those are two areas that seems to be aggressively attacked. First of all, the studies that have been done by Colin Campbell showed that the more your dietary orientation is plant-based, and it was a 10-year study with over 10,000, around 10,000 individuals involved, and it was the longest with study, not only in terms of duration, but also the largest number of variables were being addressed. Practically 100 different characteristics were followed on the individuals. And they found, as one of the examples, that the higher is the consumption of, now mind you, heat-treated protein. That's the key word, heat-treated protein. In other words, disorganized protein, the higher was the incidence of degenerative diseases. This is an undesirable directive to take. Now, we can take a look at, in a classic book that I co-authored with Dr. Edward Howell, entitled Food Enzymes for Health and Longevity. It's got 500 medical journal documentations, okay? And in it, we also looked at one culture that, in particular, that was the Eskimos, which illustrates the power of enzymatic nutrition in terms of prevention and somewhat of a long life. I thought they were living on a totally animal-based diet, however, consuming nothing but flesh foods of the slaughtered animals, because that was all there was. There was no fields of wheat, there were no apple trees or mango trees in the Laplands, in the North Pole. So they lived on what was available, but they never cooked any of that stuff. Then came in, and they ate the whole animal. They ate the brains, they ate the gut, they ate the liver, the kidney, which was the highest concentration in alkalinity. And they lived into their mid-90s, and they died from acidosis, because metabolic waste products are extremely high in the consumption of animal protein type of a dietary orientation. Then in comes missionary explorers, and they bring with them their stoves, and they start introducing the North Pole individuals to the tasty and aromatic foods that they were growing, creating in the ovens, in the frying pans. Those individuals, the Northerners, who adapted to that diet, that generation, their longevity dropped right off by over 50% into their 40s, and also for the first time it was totally unknown or unheard of, the ideas of cancer, cardiovascular diseases, rheumatism were the causes of plaguing these individuals, because they were consuming such a high volume of heat-treated animal protein. And right now the number one cause of death in USA is cardiovascular, though some might say it's cancer, and the number two is cancer. Both of them have the enzymatic component, which you'll find in my overall dissertation. So that the idea of eating heat-treated protein, which is this particular individual is advocating in a high volume, is going to push you right into collapse of your cardiovascular system. And those individuals who have compromised cardiovascular system, and studies have been done by Mount Sinai Hospital, they showed if your cardiovascular system is compromised, you will see on your earlobes creases. 2, 3, and the deeper are the creases, the more degenerative is your condition of cardiovascular system. Other studies showed that individuals who have compromised cardiovascular system, they will also have malignancy spread throughout the system. So it all depends whether you go to a cardiologist for being tested. They'll say, you got cancer, we need to do surgery, chemo, radiation, or you're going to go see a cardiologist. They said, we need to cut you off. Either way, it's not the solution, as President Clinton showed when he went to his cardiologist. After doing cut and paste on his system of blood vessels, they couldn't help him anymore. His daughter was very concerned that her daddy was not going to make it to the wedding, so told him to lose weight, and he didn't know how to lose weight, but one of the associates of PCRM.org, Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, put him on a vegan diet. We saw him just a week ago on national television, looking about 15, 20 years younger, healthy, vital. His brain is clear. He's a vegan. Wake up, America. It's all coming out of medical research. The kind that you choose, there's all kind of choices available. You can have all these advocates for the consumption and for all kind of evolutionary benefit of high protein diet. So now, what is the value? I've taken as an example, and he's only one of hundreds of star athletes, Dan O'Brien. Dan O'Brien was competing in the arena of track and other similar competitive events on international level, and he was doing relatively well. But he had the ambition of appearing in the Olympics and in the decathlon, which means expertise and physical prowess and strength in 10 different arenas. At best, he could work out 1 to 2 hours a day. That was inadequate to develop the skills and the muscular prowess. Our company turned him on to just 3 little things: blue-green algae out of the Klamath Falls, which was enzymatically active. They turned him on to digestive enzymes to support the consumption of whatever he was eating, and also probiotics to maximize the internal conditions along the gastrointestinal tract. In a healthy individual, you have 20 to 100 times more friendly probiotic cells, these active microorganisms, than you have cells in your body. That is like 95% of your genetic material is of non-human origin, is basically probiotics within a system. They assure health, according to all the studies. Countries that consume on a daily basis some form of fermented foods, whether it's sauerkraut, unheat-treated miso, kimchi, all kind of ferments. And those countries were noted for low incidence of infant mortality, degenerative diseases were low, and high longevity. That's what we really want. Youthfulness at 60, 80 years of age. And we're moving toward a culture where the mid-age crisis might not be occurring until you're 95. But that means radical alteration, not only of dietary habits and consuming low protein, dietary orientation in a pre-digested form. When you heat treat it, and this is what is being advocated by the professional, I document in all kind of nutritional and medical studies, up to 85%, 90% of the protein is disorganized and it's not recognized by your digestive enzymes and not converted into amino acids. As long as it is in a incompletely metabolized protein state, it is an allergen. It's like free radicals attacking your system. We advocate pre-digested protein. All of a sudden, we are actually, in terms of the volume of amino acid creation in our blood, we're doing it 10 times more than those that are consuming heat-treated protein-based, animal protein-based dieting, because it's totally disorganized, it's not bioavailable. I mean, come on, stupid, wake up. And as far as intellectual development, give you an example. Studies, and you can find all this, Dr. Jeffrey Bruno, he's got over 300 medical journals organized. You can find it on the internet. Studies. In particular, in Nicaragua, they took 2,000 children with the lowest academic performance in Nicaragua, and they put them on, primarily on a half a teaspoon of blue-green algae twice a day. Within one school year, they became the top school in the country, going up by 2.5 grades. Are you hearing it? It's green, fools! The greens increase your red blood cell production, your hemoglobin, which means more oxygen will be transported. The green food is alkaline. It means that you have a higher electrovoltage potential neurological for operation of your brain system, not on the acid-dead foods. We've seen, you can find also ADD, ADHD being addressed with, again, blue-green algae. My own grandmother, enzymes, little cayenne for circulation in a capsule, a mild herbal laxative, and blue-green algae. In 5 weeks, from according to the doctor, she was going to be bedridden for the rest of her life, and with Alzheimer's disease. I gave her these just 4 different supplements. In 5 weeks, the woman was out of bed, participating in the family life for another 3 years because she didn't want to make lifestyle changes. But she was able to be fully active mentally, very alive, until she faded because of the toxemia associated with the kind of foods that she decided to eat. And everybody should have the choice to eat. If they want to eat suicidal foods that are going to kill you prematurely, it's your choice. Do it. We keep getting recycled anyways, reincarnated, we're reborn, and you know, an exit role is nothing. Someday you're going to go beyond being dumb, and you're going to evolve into moving into the most powerful foods. They'll give you physical prowess of a bull, of a stallion, the speed of a deer that's breaking without any training, the 2-minute mile. That's all within the reach of the raw athlete.
Now, with regards to blood, I'm wondering if you resonate with the research and findings on blood type diets that are based on an awareness of our point in evolution that blood type was developed, you know, at certain points in time.
That is, again, a bit of hogwash from the point of view that it is not the blood typing that is creating the improvements in overall health. It's the fact that they have associated with every one of the blood types certain lifestyle activities. If you do all those lifestyle activities, you're going to be improving yourself. And even though you might be eating meat, you will have consuming now better quality meat, more balanced eating into an exercise routine, and into better attitude modification. This is all being advocated as lifestyle shifts that you should be doing for each one of the blood types. I know so many people who are type O blood, and they are raw vegan athletes, bodybuilders. So basically that has no science behind it, and
so
it was
the
an interesting...
prescription for them to be a meat eater is not...
There's no foundation for it whatsoever. There's no science, there's no anecdotal studies are very weak and ambiguous, and it's like another thrifty, trendy thing that will be gone into the past history of garbage books.
Okay. Well then, Viktoras, I know you mentioned you sort of psychically picked up on my next question being about Bill Clinton. I know you spent a number of years in Arkansas, so of course you would take notice of Bill Clinton's dietary changes in recent years. So in 2010, after his cardiac surgery, Mr. Bill Clinton adopted more of a plant-based diet based on Dean Ornish's, T. Colin Campbell's, and Caldwell Estelin's recommendations. Mm-hmm. So judging by his behavior since becoming a vegan, other than his overall health that we've noticed and weight loss, have you noticed a consciousness shift as reflected by his energy field at all?
Well, the consciousness is an automatically reflecting of the vital force within. So there's a good reason why the standard American diet is called the SAD diet. It's almost boom, it stays right in front of you. And we're all on all these prescription happy pills and enable you at least to function in the world. The whole concept of when you change your nutrition toward a vegan, which means you're going to be moving toward more alkaline. The more alkaline you are, the more you are activating not only the power of your muscles, but also the neurological power to start integrating larger dimension of your brain. And when you start moving into better usage of your brain, then you are basically moving into consciousness shift. And the brain is totally dependent on oxygen, electrovoltage potential, and precursors to the neuropeptides that facilitates the flow of thought, which are small chain amino acids, which are found in the green foods, especially in the blue-green algae that I mentioned. So with that kind of a shift, more so you will experience increased holism, increased awareness and sensitivity to things that are occurring. Matter of fact, your intuitiveness will start increasing. You will start, you're picking up the phone and you don't say, "Who is this?" No, it says, "Hello, Betty, how are you?" Because you're already on such a high level of ESP. Matter of fact, we're moving to a time, according to psychics and also mystics, that a time has come, and according to numerologists, time has come of one mind. We will be sharing one level of consciousness, just like we have trillions of cells coordinated and communicating in this limited body. We will have all bodies connected to one another, and we will move to an era from basically competition to cooperation. Wars will be totally out, and that means there will be no more meat eaters, because as long as there is ongoing meat consumption, then you're consuming the fear of the slaughtered animal, and you cannot trust anybody because you have that fear of the slaughtered animal that went into the slaughterhouse and was emitting adrenaline, emitting pituitary glandular stress factors that are not destroyed in the process of heating, and you are consuming it, and it alters your brain chemistry. Just for instance, you can take the blood, draw out some blood out of a schizophrenic and inject it to someone of the same blood type, and sure enough, right then and there they go schizophrenic. It's in the blood, buddy. And it's in the blood that makes you a little crazy until your own body detoxifies it. This is why they have used in Moscow Psychiatric Institute, and you can see the exact studies referenced, and it was published in Schizophrenia Review. They treated all forms of mental disorders with primarily exercise, fasting, liquid program, and vegan diet. It alters your state of consciousness. Remove those fear complexes that you're integrating. All of a sudden, you are fearless. You don't have negativity. you all of a sudden start aspiring because you're utilizing more and more of that divine crown that you have in your body for successfully accomplishing your mission on planet Earth in this incarnation.
So Bill Clinton gives hope to all politicians, and let's hope that the elimination of the New World Order tactics.
Well, I'll just share with you what's
what's
going on in Costa Rica. I mean, they've done their share of drugs, sex, alcohol, rock and roll, and all that kind of stuff. And you know the new fad is? Yes, and a new trend. It's more than a fad, it's a trend. And basically, detoxification, cleansing, vegan diet, and spirituality and holism. Even the president, previous president, came into my friend's clinic in a helicopter, and other times in limo with a whole range of guards for colonic irrigations. Matter of fact, the whole staff was getting colonic irrigations. And you know, this is called progressive thinking on the part of politicians. If you are constipated, you think your brain is working in a holistic way? If you're in a fear mode, can you think anything beyond your limited personal needs instead of thinking, what is it going to look like for the next 5, 10 years? Is our lifestyle sustainable? UN has stated in the Department of Food and Nutrition, after extensive studies, it states that as far as our sustainability of our environment, the greenhouse effect, the greenhouse gases emissions that is taking place, majority of it's due not to do our trucking industry and transportation. It's the production and consumption of animal protein. We are making this spaceship, planet Earth, that is circling around the planet unsustainable by our lifestyle habits. Wake up, America. Wake up, planet. You gotta go vegan. Then, and if you go also vegan and you go raw, then you provide 100 times more nutrition from the same acreage of land. You don't have to be concerned about our inability to supply the nutrients. We're supplying it in the most efficient possible fashion, with creating also the maximum effect on the human body, moving into a state of peace, creativity, at-one-ment. Universal values start evolving, and we start channeling the energy of love, which is what the great All-Master said. Love yourself and love others. But people just don't love themselves because they are filled with disorganized mental thoughts about themselves, about the judgments and all that negativity they received from past. Yet through fasting, you can clean out the bloodstream of all this negativity through green juices. Nowadays, it's far better than just water fasting. And your mind becomes clearer and sharper, more focused, and more peaceful, and more productive. And when you integrate all of this with meditation, the TM studies showed that whatever you do, whatever kind of activity you might be involved, in order to be an achievement and to maximize your abilities, you'll meditate. Whatever you do, it will enable you to do it better. And we see it now in the commercial world, in many of the corporate offices. Meditation is encouraged.
Boy, if we got everyone in the White House to meditate, wouldn't this
all we need
be
is
a whole new reality in the
all we
United
need
States?
is 10% for critical mass.
10%.
That's
right,
all. You don't
okay.
need to have everyone. Then the rest of them will fall into place. But 10% of it, that's all that's needed.
Great. Well, while we're on the subject of politics, before we get back to that beautiful point that you made with regards to our evolution and where we're going, I'd like to just speak for a moment on the Obama administration. Obama announced some key administration post changes in 2011 with the addition of Dean Ornish and other related experts in the field of health to what's called the Advisory Group on Prevention, Health Promotion, and Integrative and Public Health. Do you honestly feel the recent legislation under the current administration addresses the cause or prevention of disease in 2012 more than it did in 2011 and before this new advisory board was set into motion?
It all depends on what level of platform that Dean Ornish is going to be placed. If he's going to be sitting in the background trying to encourage and make all kind of political changes, in no way there's going to be much change, but it's a very positive attribute, just as positive as having Michael Beckwith in his previous celebration, a great not only vegan, raw foodist, spiritual master, that his choir performed I think 3 or so recitals during the celebration of his winning of the previous presidency. He's certainly surrounded by the right kind of individuals. And it's a matter how much, what roles will they play in terms of creating influence. Remember, we have major dairy meat lobby that is inculcating our children that we need to be consuming so much milk, which is the #1 cause of all degenerative disease is consumption of pasteurized milk. Go to the website www.notmilk, notmilk.com, and you'll see, what a deadly elixir. It's pasteurized, and then if it was raw milk, it's totally another issue altogether. Your body not only can tolerate, but it can also get some benefit. But you don't have the need for milk. We see it also now in the milk industry, the liquid elixirs called, rice milk, almond milk, soy milk. All these are coming into being. But even better ones are the ones you make at home by soaking your sunflower overnight, soaking your almonds overnight, blending it to a cream with water. Squeeze out that liquid, and you got high protein, alkalizing milk being made available to your children.
And of course, a local health expert and advocate, Karen, has a book called Soak Your Nuts. So go pick up a copy of Soak Your Nuts at your local Whole Foods.
Absolutely. Thank you for mentioning.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the title, Soak Your Nuts. It's the best. That being said, I want to know if you have any comments with regards to Obamacare, whether it actually addresses the issues in our health system you feel needs to be addressed.
Obamacare is going to have an impact, probably adding more cost to our economy with that particular gesture, and possibly even less care. Until Obamacare becomes what the late President Johnson, when he stepped on the plate and he delivered a message on the health of the nation, he almost flipped over because he read that report for the first time. In it, it said, according to the expert, 65% of Americans who are sick with incurable disease, 25% of the children. That was a long time ago, many generations ago, the condition. It has not gotten better. It's gotten worse in terms of morbid obesity, degeneration, etc. So he said and we were like 40th nation in terms of health in the world, and he thought we were the healthiest nation in the world. So he said to the Surgeon General, go out and find out why we got problems. 10 years later comes back the Surgeon General report. And to make sure you don't miss the essential critical information, they put it right in the introduction. As far as wellness and health is concerned, it's stated, do not expect any help from your traditional medical doctors, from hospitals, or from any scientific breakthrough. It said the whole issue of wellness and health resides on 5 basic principles. That holism model that I taught. Improvement of your nutrition, exercise, your attitude, the amount of rest you get, and the degree of environmental pollution that you are subject, as well as cigarette smoke. You improve these modules, and all of a sudden, you are going to be healthier. So Obamacare should be the teaching of the 5 basic principles, and he's going to be able to reduce the whole healthcare issue, just like the previous governor said from Arkansas, the hell with healthcare, let's get healthy. And that's the whole issue. Get healthy by introducing and teaching the 5 basic principles that are consistent with what Dean Ornish is teaching in the PCRM.org. And this is what we all can do. It's the job of the politicians to bring these sacred truths to the public. They are not doing it.
No, and furthermore, the next question I'd like to ask you is about this particular document called the Codex Alimentarius, which I picked up at the Health Freedom Expo recently here in Chicago in June. And it's an essential part of becoming a member of the National Health Federation. Can you tell us why this is important to know about? This also says global food imperialism.
Well, yeah, in Costa Rica, I stopped at the local grocery store and I picked up Twinkies. And I'm reading, while I'm waiting in line, you know, instead of reading National Enquirer, I'm reading Twinkies label, and it says approved by this codex as a food that is within their standards. This is the kind of standards that is being advocated. Food that is processed, dead, that has a shelf life of 1,000 years. Is that what you want to be eating? Putting it into your body? I don't think so. They, of course, endorse and approve genetically modified food, processed foods, dead foods. The whole intention of this whole thing is accelerate the depopulation process, which is being initiated by, whether you look at the chlorination, the fluoridation, the chemtrails that are in the air, all of it are out to impact, accelerated the radical depopulation that is being propagated without war.
Now I'd like to shift gears. Thank you.
You've got to make your own choices. Nobody else is going to provide the answers. And the whole idea of sustainability, living on the limited environment within which you have. We are born of nature, and we are natural nature, wildlife needing individuals, life forms. And as long as we stay away from nature in our concrete block homes and away from clean air, sunshine, fresh water, you're just going to decay and decompose and be recycled by the microbial maggot world. But you can do a lot in your own home. That's what my teacher, Reverend Ann Wigmore, that's what Hippocrates Health Institute, this is our mission, is to bring the holistic lifestyles that are totally doable within your own personal home environment, so you can recover from degenerative diseases at pennies a day. Well, it might be 100 pennies a day, through the process of growing the grasses of Nebuchadnezzar, who we all heard of him in the Bible, who was sick mentally and physically, ate grasses, and he overcame all these conditions. Following the teachings of the ministry of the Essenes, who were rediscovered in the Dead Sea Scrolls. That was their original writing. Historian Josephus said they lived on the average 400% longer. The average age was over 125 years of age, whereas the average age for Mediterranean, for Northern Africa, for Southern Europe was around 35. They lived on a vegan, enzymatically active, plant-based diet with a whole emphasis on germinated seeds, the sprouted seeds, the baby greens, the immature plants, which have the highest energy, most bioavailable nutrient profile. As a result, you need very little. And also, they're alkaline. If you are on an acid-oriented diet, your cells are dying off rapidly. Dr. Creel, Nobel Prize recipient, said the ultimate cause of all cellular death is acidity. You are consuming in your elixirs. Everything that you consume is acid. Your colas, your cooked foods, your processed foods, they're all acidifying on your system. The only thing that is alkaline is the raw greens and the alkaline sweet fruit, as well as water is helping to flush out acids out of your system. Most people are severely dehydrated, and then they drink the chlorinated, fluoridated water, which is making your brains go stupid, and also at the same time the intestinal tract, it has an antibiotic effect, killing off all the friendly bacteria. This is not what you want in your life. But there's ways that you can do all this in a right fashion in your own home, in a cost-effective way. You can buy all the tools you need within the internet, even within Walmart. I mean, they got cheap, inexpensive juicers. They got inexpensive blenders that allow you to use them to create very delicious food, so that it can be done by anybody. And then you can sprout so simply. Just visit me on YouTube. We have free ways to show you how to sprout, utilizing the paint strainer bags, which are nylon meshes, at any paint store or lumber yard or hardware store. You use them, and it takes only a few minutes a day. You can grow from 1 pound of seeds, 10 pounds of sprouts, and they keep very well in a refrigerator. So there is solutions. Do not panic. You just got to make the right kind of choices in your life.
Or you visit a place like Veggie Fest, where I was a couple weeks ago at the Science of Spirituality down in Naperville, and I saw the Sprout Man there, and they had beautiful sprouts growing out of a bag. Very easy and simple to do. So much like your own book, Viktoras, Survival into the 21st Century, a generation has passed since Dr. Gabrielle Cousens wrote Spiritual Nutrition and the Rainbow Diet, in which you wrote the preface. The modern printing, in which I have here with me today, Spiritual Nutrition, 6 Foundations for Spiritual Life and the Awakening of Kundalini, also includes your preface, of which I would like to highlight here and have you elaborate on the spiritual and nutritional frontiers we are foraging. I love when you say in this book that it helps. That this book helps Mother Earth detox into the world of tomorrow, which is being created in the hearts and minds of the ones who are at one-ment, or atonement, at one-ment. I am that. You also go on to say, regarding the book, it is like having a conversation with God over a glass of wheatgrass juice. Love that quote. This is essentially the metaphor I'd like to delve into, as it seems to have the keys to the whole concept of spiritual nutrition. And as an energy therapist, I'm most intrigued with how this relates to the chakras and raising our consciousness through what we eat and take into our bodies. You've certainly laid out all the foods. I'd like to talk a little bit, have you talk a little bit more about that, and perhaps you can discuss briefly the model of subtle organizing energy fields, or SOEFs.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just show a photo here that has the chakras. And in fact, in Survival into the 21st Century, you were one of the first ones to include chakras in your book over 35 years ago, and there weren't even, the amount of books on chakras that there are today.
Thank you.
Yeah. So again, with regards to nutrition and raising consciousness and how it affects the aura and the energy field.
The more still is your energy, the more quicker will you evolve in intellectual and spiritual consciousness. In Bhagavad Gita, it states that a person, they have 3 dietary levels. The Essenes had the 4th one, which was biogenic. The Bhagavad Gita, they talk about sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic. The tamasic is basically a diet of cooked and overcooked food. And it states in it, that's thousands of years ago, it states such individuals are unsuited for spiritual and intellectual work. The energy is totally stuck in the stomach, in the digestive process. It does not rise into the heart or the throat or the consciousness. Basically, such individuals are relatively robotic. Though temporarily you can transcend when you are abstaining or under influence of a cup of coffee or some other kind of stimulant or marijuana. You can access much higher levels of awareness, and that all has to do with alkalinity and versus alkaloids. On a vegan diet, you are on an alkalizing, alkaline diet. On a tamasic, acidic diet, you are acidifying, and if you reach for certain elixirs that have ability to neutralize the acid components that are circulating in your system, that does make you temporarily alkaline. Whether it's nicotine, caffeine, cocaine, or marijuana, any of these things can do that. And what we saw is a major revolution take place 3 generations or so ago, when marijuana became popular in the culture which was evolving out of the president like ours are promising all kinds of things. He promised us a car in every garage and chicken in every pot. Well, the kids forgot about the chicken and they got into the pot. And what we had was a major revolution. The anti-war movement took place. Pro-life, in other words, became activated. The idea of killing anything, animals or humans, was a no-no when your consciousness has evolved. And that temporarily evolves it. It evolved them to leave the life of the city, and communes were formed. It also led them to growing their own food. And when you're growing your food and eating in the garden, that alkaline food, it's starting to alkalize. And the more alkalizing you got, the more high you got without relying on that marijuana weed. Matter of fact, what started happening, you became so alkalized and so conscious that if you took that marijuana, you pushed yourself into extreme alkalosis and you had a bummer trip. No more glorious hyperspace adventures. Now all of a sudden, you wasted. Alkalosis, just like acidosis, is also physical extremity. So you got that subtle, small energy area within which that you need to stay for optimal alkalizing. So on a vegan diet, you can alkalize yourself, increase your electrovoltage potential for your brain, so the brain becomes integrated and functioning on a much, much higher level of awareness. And what is considered holistic, sustainable, and universal, instead of just involved in strategies for basically security, trying to survive from day to day. When you are on an alkaline diet, you know you're taken care of. There's nothing that can trouble you. Just like good example in the Bible was Daniel and his friends who were kind of pushed into the direction of eating king's meat. And they begged the king, says, give us 10 days to live on our diet of legumes. And if we prove to be not as vital as your athletes and your astrologers and your wise men, we will do what you require. And after 10 days on pulses, which were just soaked legumes like lentils, mung beans, it proved to the king that they were wiser than the wisest sages that he had in his courts in terms of addressing any, whether it was political or astrological issues. They were stronger, healthier. Their composure was youthful, alive, much more vital than what was done by the animal protein diet. So it allowed them to live on. Then they got kind of not happy with them because of political intrigue, so they decided to throw them into the ovens and roast them. What did they do? They danced and celebrated in the ovens. You'd say, well, that is not possible. That's not my reality. Well,